slight problem with the written orders as I've got them played. There's a few problems. One is I make my bidding orders before I see, and this is by the game no matter what, before I see what the opportunity chits are. It would be nice to be able to have all that information ahead of time. But the opportunities, if they're not far in advance, it makes sense that you have to rush to get to them, and you might have to screw your business opportunities up elsewhere. The other problem, though, is, and this also I'm not seeing as a real problem, but McCready here, for example, if he wants to stay here or jump anywhere else, he has to win the initiative bid. Coming in last in initiative doesn't help because everybody's got the opportunity, the way I'm doing the plotted movement, because it happens in the hyperjump phase, to say, you know, I don't want to chance Sigma Drac. I see he's going after me in the turn order and he's going to get a shot to intercept me. I think that captures some of the feeling of the initial, of the way the game rules were meant to be applied, but without the problem that there is absolutely no way that a pirate can catch anyone unless they intend to fly into it. However, it does mean that McCready, as a pirate, has to bid high on initiative every turn. Initiative order has McCready in first place. Another big bid by Houston Fearless, Buckley and McCready bid 15. But they get stuck. They're going to have to take their chances here. And those chances are probably pretty big. I think McCready is going to take a jump to Moo Hercules, just because so many people have isotopes and maybe alloys, and this is just the clear market where that's going to be. So I think we're going to see some interception chances, assuming he makes it. He's got a pretty decent jump chance, though. He really ought to get an A crew, but he's never in a spaceport, so he can never hire better crew members. The new event is more weapons coming from Epsilon Eridani. Unless you have Battlecom and Streamline, you just can't go in there. It's too risky. The chance of getting wrecked is too high. Maybe somebody like Eon could get away with it, because you get driven back to port, I think. You don't just get shot up. It's not like being... System space is the dangerous place to hang out. And what's really horrible with system space is you end up getting intercepted and you might not make it to planet. Just crew that sucks with McCready. He doesn't have an augmented jump pod. I think the answer is, right at the beginning of the game, you go someplace, you grab something. You grab the crew and the equipment that you actually need. The problem is, you kind of feel like, well, I should be out doing stuff pirating. I also don't like that you can't capture ships. That always, to me, space piracy is always about capturing ships, at least in the Traveler type way and everything, where you're boarding and doing stuff. And, it kind of spoils some of the mood for me. Anyway, they failed their first jump again, and that means everybody gets in for free, and people are spending too much on initiative worried about them. I'm trying to slip into Sigma Drac. D also failed his jump, and he's having to buy an isotope and a spice anyway. Could have bought more, but he doesn't really want to throw more and more money in there. The law level's low. Somebody could easily screw with his stuff. Even though the port's blockaded, doesn't mean you can't sabotage it. All you need is that low law level. Things didn't move as much as you'd like, maybe. Green went in with the market manager to undercut yellow here. And that forced yellow not to sell all of the isotopes they have. That means yellow may well build a warehouse here and leave it. Or if they're, well, they're kind of out of stuff, which means this ship, by the way, I'm using these counters to be extras because we just don't have a big enough counter mix. Remember, this is a magazine game. Came with a limited counter mix. The game, in a couple of players, works fine, but once you get up to 6 players with the big corporations, with all their ships and everything, you really do push the counter mix pretty hard. I've usually played it in a larger number of players, either solitaire or when I bring it to a gaming group, because, it works fine in 3, 2 is a little weird. You use these flipped over counters to make the markets a little bit less drastic, which means there's less capability to take advantage of them, to indicate or to account for kind of other people doing trading under your whatever, just to keep the arbitrage level in the game from being too high. In 3 players, though, there's a lot of room for people to find their own little niches and find their own patterns. Here people are colliding all the time, and I don't think I've played it very often. I think I've played it once in 3. Played it a couple of times opposed in large groups, like 5 or 6. Always opposed with the base victory conditions, just because I think the other ones are skewed so much. They're interesting, though, so I wouldn't discount them immediately. It's just, you know, without players being sure what they're doing, there's a certain learning curve that initial game makes it easier. Even for me, it's been a long time since I played, and there's a lot of little things I've forgotten. Big dump of monopoles over here. Made some nice cash at the 300 level. Yellow's been able to get rid of a lot of their materials, but, you know, they didn't make the big jump into Sigma Drac that they were counting on making, right? That's them? No, that's blue. They're up here. Yeah. I don't know. And such not. So green is kind of falling down in cash. You got to really watch it, because you could end up running low enough on money where you can't really operate anymore. So that's a definite issue, because there's so many things that aren't really fixed expenses, but you feel like you want to buy them. Hey, I got to look at this opportunity. Hey, I got to do this. I got to do that. And a lot of them are just money sinks, really. Like the opportunities, except for if you memorize the values on the back of the 1 that or 2 that can really affect the game heavily. Most of them you can pretty much do without knowing. They're not worth a constant flow of $5 a turn, but I find it so hard not to spend that. I think if I felt that other players weren't spending them and I was falling behind because of that, I might not do it, but my psychology says do it. You know, interesting degree of ugliness is happening where Eon starts saying, hey, you know, what is it, Houston Fearless, yeah, a lot of nice monopoles there. Oh yeah, terrible shame if something happened to them. Give me $20 and I'll leave them alone. And Fearless is like, not very fearless. Yeah, okay, we can do that. And then McCready says, wait a minute, I got almost as high a criminal. I want $20 too. And it's like, whoa, hold on. You know, we can't be paying you $40 a turn just to have warehouses, right? And then Eon points out, well, look, D, which is Quasar, also has some nice materials. Some spice sitting in, and a bunch of isotopes sitting in a warehouse. We could burn those too. We could get 20 from each of them. And then Ian says, you know, you're right. I want 20 from each of them. So at this point, I think there's almost a, we're not going to give in to this. Certainly B is not going to, because it's expensive to burn things in beta hydride. Most of his other warehouses are free or empty. He's got a bunch of isotopes here, but they're pretty worthless. You know, go ahead, man. But that puts our good old friend Quasar in a hard case, because he was intending to try to load those up and get out of there this turn. And now he's facing a couple of people willing to pay. And I think Eon's going to drop the hammer here. They don't really care too much about their market positions. B can knock them out if they want to pay the money for them. So we're starting to get to that, you know, a bunch of nasty stuff going on. Because only one person can sabotage any given resource. So McCready sabotaged this. He's got to decide if he wants to pay the 80 bucks for this. If he chooses not to, B might end up paying Eon, maybe not 20 bucks, but some share to prevent that. McCready did burn the spice out of here, just because he feels like that's the one he was more involved in. So because Opportunity Phase is done in order, when McCready burned this, it doesn't compel anyone to anything, and Eon didn't feel like they made any real commitment to McCready to support them. They accepted 10 bucks as a bribe not to spend 80 to wreck that shit. They used their cash to buy an agent. They got Badger, which is a really lucky move. This is the one they were going for. Subtract 3 from the security rating of planet they're trying to land on. That's as good as a Battlecom pod. And now I've got enough that I could try to run those weapons from Eridani. I hope they don't go to Beta Hydra. 17. That's the next worst place. No, they go to Gamma Leporis, which I wish, I don't know. You know, there's concepts in here like the anarchists and stuff who are trying to wreck things, and they're kind of based out of Gamma Leporis, where I think there's a rebellion going on or something. It would be kind of neat. I don't think if they're in that they particularly get any bonuses here, do they? I'm looking at their victory options. Destroy hulls of 5 ships. That's pretty impressive. No enemy spaceships enter Sigma Draconis for 6 consecutive game turns. And you have Market Manager in 2 of their commodities. So they've got a couple of weird victory conditions, which I've never gotten to play them because they're so, 1 out of 36 chance on each roll. And I have not played very many games with the corporations in it. It might be worth, playing with these block sets where they're more likely to show up. You can see they show up in a couple of the 6-player game ones. And, well, 1 in each of the others except for the 2-player game. They'd be weird in a 2-player game. But, is that a greater chance that they're going to show up? Well, 2 in a 6-player game, yeah, that's twice the chance, and then in the other games, even though they only show up once, that's more than would be expected anyway. So there's an attempt to get them in on the chart because they're one of the most interesting. It'd be kind of cool to let people pick too, although they're not balanced. So I guess that's about it for the opportunities. We're going to see something with the investment. Contemplating, there's people who are just short on cash, and especially trying to think of who it is. Yeah. There's people who feel like they could make more money if they take out a loan and build another ship, but the only person who can really build one off the bat is Quasar here. So I may be trying to juggle around and see that, but the problem is the more ships there are by the more people, the less profits to be made. So if you start flooding additional ships into the market, into the game, you're probably cutting your market, your margin that you can pull in here, but you're also cutting everyone else's a little bit. Only one of the corporations decided to take advantage of the shipping, largely because B and D both have a number of ships in play. So does A, for that matter. There's only so much room. D has this huge monster and then this thing to slip into Sigma Drac, and they don't really have... they're the ones with the money. They don't really have a great concept for what they would do with another ship. But the one person who did was E. They took out a loan, took out a $60 loan because that was the cheapest for 8 turns that I could get that'll cost me nothing. Loans are kind of weird. You can get a very low valued loan for almost no interest. But if you start boosting that up, you start paying more and more interest on it. So in this case, because of his 40 reputation value, he was able to say, hey, I can, take out 60 bucks. That puts me to 20. Divide 20 by 20 and you get 1, and that's what the interest payment is. If I wanted to take any bigger loan, well, I could have taken an 80 buck loan. That might have been kind of cool, and that would cost me $2 a turn. But with 8 turns for the loan, it looked like this is enough money. I still have almost 200 hectotrans to play with. This ship's not going to be in play yet. Yes, I have no materials, no resources in hand, but it just seems like the best move there. I might want to roll a die for 6. Basically, what is it? It's like 20 hectotrans to roll the die to get a shot to move your reputation up, because B doesn't have a terribly good path forward for reputation. They can pay to increase their political, but that's gotten kind of expensive. So let me see how much it costs. Yeah, it's 20 hectotrans to increase. I'm so short on cash. On a 3 or higher, I gained some money, but I think I'm going to hold off for now and wait until I have a little bit more padding to think about doing that. I don't actually need it for my victory conditions, so I think that's for the best. And nobody's auto-increasing. McReady bought another level of criminal. So I guess we're moving into turn 8 here after I resolve. I haven't done the bookkeeping, the final admin of like spending for crew and for getting the money from the reputation. Okay, on the we went through the bidding and the initiative setup. The interesting thing was the event chits. First one that came up was a Criminal 1, which, a lot of people are able to buy. And it is weapons from Tau Ceti, a somewhat easier place to get into, to Gamma-Leporis. Well, this is good because Eon was actually planning on going to this one, but they shouldn't have been. They didn't have the right to see the chit. That was a business chit rather than a criminal chit, so they wouldn't have had an awareness of it. So a turn that I essentially would have wasted if I had discovered that they shouldn't have been able to take the chit is now changed to one where they can try to haul weapons somewhere. The other one's a business 10. This is an opportunity for an illegal haul. I think we saw this one before. Again, it's at Epsilon Eridani. Any illegal haul, a bunch of pods. The problem is nobody's got the kind of cash to invest enough to drive McReady away from wherever he's sitting, for whatever that's worth. We don't know where he's going yet. He bought the initiative a big 17 bucks. At some point, he's just going to leave. He's paying 12 a turn, to his crew, and paying off other things as well. And the matter is, if he doesn't figure out a way to make some money, his crew will mutiny on him and become a new pirate ship going off to some better place. And that's really one of the things is it's possible, certainly for the player to just disappear. But it's possible, especially if you don't have a decent rep, for you to just start degenerating completely. If you have a high rep, you can hold your place in the game simply off of the 30 to 40 bucks a turn. You can pay your salary off that, so you're not going to go bankrupt easily. But you might be in a position where you don't have cash and you've got to kind of maybe sell your ship or something and sit out for a few turns collecting money from your rep. And if somebody's going to do that, I feel like they've left the game, really. I mean, if you were playing it face-to-face and you were in that position where you're looking at like, oh, geez, I got to wait 4 or 5 turns before I can come back in. Just bail, you know. Go play something else or go home or whatever. It's the hyperspace. McReady's sitting where he is, which means he's got a shot at intercepting that thing. But right now we're on the Flash Corp ship. Let me see if it makes it automatically. It should. Okay. So we're heading to Tossetti, but we're going on planet. And this is the first time I've done this. It's a streamlined ship, so there's 2. And then I've got this Badger fella that brings it to 5. So only on a 2 do I even match the security rating, which is pretty good. So I'm going to get to land, and I'm going to get to do whatever nefarious weapons hauling I'm going to have. I only have 4 cargo on this ship, though. That's one of the problems with these little streamlined ships. The flute is pretty decent, but most of them are, I mean, and the flute is pretty expensive for the amount of cargo it carries, too. So, you know, there's only so much you can haul in them. McReady outrolled the flute. Now, here's the problem. He's just hauling alloys. The materials on board aren't worth much at all. It's just alloys. Yes, I'm going in here for the alloys, but those alloys are worth 40 bucks, you know, and it's the opportunity to buy spice. So that's the big question. All right, now that you were caught, how much, you know, because somebody could be paying McReady a bribe to let them in and just to control it for them, and that would actually be pretty decent. But nobody's offered to do that, and nobody's come to a high enough value. And now the question is, well, how much is your ship, this flute, which is worth, you know, $225 on its own, and those alloys, and a shot to get the spice? How much is that worth to you? You know, is it worth 100? Is it worth more than that? You know, clearly losing the ship would suck. Yeah. Anyway, I have to do the negotiation on my own and also look up the combat rules a little bit more to understand. I don't think there's any way to break off combat. So if McReady destroys this, he gets very little. He gets 40 bucks worth. On the other hand, Quasar loses a fair amount. He'll lose the spaceship, which is worth $225, a little bit more than that because it's got some other equipment on it. You know, it's got, oh, this one doesn't have an augmented jump. How about that? But it's got 3 cargo holds, which aren't worth much. The bounty on the crew that I charge. But yeah, you know, we're talking about it's worth about $250. I think 100 is too low. If we look at the 2 together, that's about the split point, though. McReady's asking 200. He says, you know, you're getting $250 for the ship, plus the opportunity to buy the spice. So, you know, I think you're probably coming out a little ahead if I don't destroy you. And I'm not going to be able to win the game off of doing this kind of shit. I have to figure some other way to make enough money to get me up to that, what, 1,800 or whatever. So I'm not really a terrible threat here. I don't know if that sounds like a fair deal at all to Quasar. It doesn't to me. No. They're more on the 100 side of things, but there's no way McReady's taking that. Can they settle at 150? They cannot. What about 175? No. I think McReady's just going to blow him out of the water. Don't pay, you don't get to keep your ship. Final call? Yeah. Alright. So, we do the combat. And we've done one of these before, I think. haven't we? We don't want to use missiles particularly because we want to grab, I guess, some of those, whatever's on board. Get some money out of this. We have 23 bucks, or 23 combat rating to a 3. Oh, hold on. So McCready is the one who's forcing the combat. We don't want to take a reputation hit here and lose the ship and do almost no damage. So 23 to a 3 defense. What am I rolling? It's only one die. 26 to a 3 defense. Says I do 3 hits to this thing. I'll take those hits. I don't know. Yeah, I have 3. I'll take those hits to my cargo pod. So I'm just going to mark these down. I'll figure out what the damage means I have to lose before that. Well, now I get to shoot back because I'm still here. So I have 3 to a 4. I have 9 to a 4. I can't hurt this thing. So it will eventually destroy me. There's nothing I can do about it. I could be asked to 200 again. You know, I'm going to pay it. Yeah, I'll pay it. So McCready lets me through. Damaged. Now I took that damage, so that damage is going to be 1 pod destroyed, 1 pod damaged, and McCready can grab a couple of, well, he can grab some of the, most of the resources that fell out. I have a lot of interleaving going on here. Crap, I screwed up. We have 3 different people bidding to buy alloys here. I missed one of them here, which was, this guy's buying them at 3. So I gotta give this guy his money back. He spent 16 bucks. And unfortunately, that moved lots of things around. This was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Get rid of his alloys. So we have bids at 2, 1, and 3. And we've got somebody selling alloys here at 2. He's just putting that price in there because if he can dump some of the product when it's, you know, above minimal price, it's worth it because he produces so much of it. Okay, so the buy at 3 is handled first. That's Gamma Lep. Now, what I thought, or that's D, whatever D is. It's Quasar. Whatever, what I was thinking was going on here was, look, you know, somebody could buy some if the price is near here. That drives the price up to where it's a seller's market, and then another player can sell. And that's what screws with my, I feel like you'd have to be given the opportunity to keep buying as well at the higher price in order to really reflect the market properly. Because again, this is kind of like the pass option. If I'm in a position where I'm trying to buy one and because of where things are placed, or buy a few at a slight increase in price, I should be given the opportunity to buy up the rest of the market as sales become available. It's very much like the pass option. If my order is not fulfilled, if I'm not done taking it, I should be able to keep purchasing. That reflects more, I think, what the game's trying to represent than the way the actual rules work. Anyway, what do we have here? So I don't think anything too exciting is going to happen. So this guy's trying to buy at 3, but we'll see. And he has ship number 3 there, which has 18 cargo. Well, how many can I buy at 3? 3 is plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can buy 9 of them at 3. And I'm going to do that. That's why I'm here, basically. And we'll find us a 1 marker to put under there. That's less than I would like to buy, but maybe the price changes a little. So now he would be done under the normal rules because he's just made his purchase, and he would roll for how many he succeeded to, whether he gets his manager position. I'm willing to do that roll, maybe with the proviso that you can only gain 1 position because his order's split. So he gets his market manager position. That doesn't give him anything, and he can't roll again on that. That I think is important. Okay, so now we go to Gamelepko, who's trying to sell at 2, which is minus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can sell up to 7 at 2. I'll do that. I don't have a ship there, so I get 14 bucks. Put this here in case I need it, and I get a roll. I get a market position as well, and I actually have room for the business connection. So I'll be back in a moment. Because the way the rules are written, I'd be jumping to the next player who is trying to buy alloys at 2. And he'd be given that opportunity. But there's still someone willing to buy them at 3. And that's what I don't like, and that's what I'm changing here. So again, the rules as written could create something where you get less than you probably deserve. And in fact, maybe you could, depending on how the sales and buys are scheduled, if they're really kind of anomalous, you could have somebody bidding less, getting more of the product, which would really disturb me. So I'm still bidding at 3, which is plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. I will buy them because I have room for that. And that's another 21. Did I don't know. I think I did it right. So that's another 21 bucks for 7 more, which means I can actually take one of these 8s, but we're going to have problems in a little bit. Now we have somebody still trying to sell it too, right? Now I don't get another roll for market manager because I succeeded, or for market position, because I succeeded in my last one. I'm only going to allow 1 position per turn. So this guy's still interested in selling, and he could sell 4 more. Why not? That gives me 8 more bucks. And now we're back to, I could buy more at 3. 18 cargo. I got room for 2 more. I'll buy them. That's 6 bucks more. And here, to me, the market is actually working properly. And now we go back to the highest buyer, or the best seller, who's willing to sell it too. I could sell 2 more. And that gets me 4 bucks. And you can see why they didn't want to do this. It's because by reflecting a natural market, they're actually creating this kind of bouncing around situation, except I think I just cheated. I don't think he could sell those. The reason is it was over here, because this guy didn't push the price. What it means is the other guy who's bidding 2 on the buying can buy him. He can only get 2 of them though. And I don't know how to mark 2 alloys when I don't have any here. He doesn't have any on his ship. I'm going to have to find a 2 marker on somebody else, like, oh jeez. Well, somebody's got to have excess alloys, right? This guy's got a 1. We'll dig up a replacement 1 in alloys for him. And that gives me a 2 here. So what would have happened under my understanding of the rules is yellow would have gotten some at 3, blue wouldn't have gotten to sell as many, and orange would have gotten maybe a full shipload at 4, or at 2, undercutting yellow's price. Let me make sure if I've understood the rules as they were previously correctly. Oh, but here's the thing. Now, after he buys, those 2 that he was selling are now available to be sold again. And I'm gonna use this to indicate them. I got confused because I made change. So he does get his $4 there as well. The marker's back here. If anybody else wanted to buy it too, hey, I still do. Okay. So I'm going to get to take that overflow into place as well. And they're just going to be bouncing back and forth. Because the price is just sitting there. Hey, I sell 2 more. That's $4 more. Hey, I'm willing to buy 2 more. Now, essentially, this is them agreeing to buy and sell at the same price to one another. They don't have to deal through the market for this, so they could have done it otherwise. I just bought 2 more. And I'm up to the 6. There are no more to sell. So now the price levels out and we're done. Controlling feature here. This stuff is performed once for each bid placed by a player for the commodity at the system in question. That's the issue that creates this not to be a fair market and allows somebody to slip in and buy stuff at a lower price that they wouldn't normally be able to get. Now, D had the contractor ability before this all started, but they can't use it because they were involved in bidding. So yeah, if you take this line out and just allow the highest bid in any direction with initiative or whatever other modifiers you have to take effect, and you could interleave if you wanted or any kind of thing like that, you actually get what is really a market. Now, some of it's silly, like with yellow and blue orange and blue playing ping pong at the end. Really, they could have just decided we don't want to play in the market, we'll just trade at the price. And that would have been fine, it would have the exact same effect. It's only because they were trading at the same price, at the market price, that it's fine, that it bounces back and forth so much. But otherwise, yeah, yellow would not have gotten a full load. Blue would not have been able to sell all their materials. Basically, they would have had to arrange this privately rather than letting the market take care of a transaction that they were willing to make. That's not terrible, but if it was done privately, yellow would have to be offering 3 directly to blue. And blue would have to be burning the money. I mean, basically there was some extra money that got eaten up by the market because of those high bids. I've detected what looks like an off by 1 error. No, is it? Yeah. I think the system has an off by 1 error in it. I just did a sales of isotopes using Market Manager ability. And I looked at it and said, well, it's at 6 right now. I think I want to try to boost it. I'm willing to sell if the die roll is good and I get 7. I don't have a lot of them here. Well, the market will go up unless I sell. Now, this is wrong. And it's kind of baked into the system, and I'm not sure it can be easily fixed. So here's the thing. If I sell, the way it's listed is you can only sell if there's more spaces willing to buy at that price to the right. There's someone willing to buy one at +1, but I'm not allowed to sell. It's like the market is going to drive up, but I'm not the one who's able to sell it, or something like that. And that feels wrong. I feel like there's actually an off by 1, and it's probably in every single transaction. So if I was willing to buy and the price is lower, yeah, I would be in the same position. This time I fudged it and allowed it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's a reasonable thing to do. On the other hand, there is clearly an error there. You know, it's just, is it a real off by 1, or is it something that the system actually, you know, is accounting for some trade that's going on that doesn't involve the players and saying, well, yeah, the market price is going up, but no one's willing to buy it from you at that. I don't think that makes sense. So I'm going to try to keep an eye out for situations like that, and I'll try to account for it where I can. But I can't guarantee, because I'm so used to following the rules on this one. Of negotiation, Eon and McCready each got $3 from Houston Fearless for leaving their monopoles alone there. At an $80 cost, for a chance to destroy it, it's not that great a deal for either of them. Maybe if they could get a bunch of people to chime in to pay it, but getting a few bucks bribe seems reasonable. Now at this point we have the smuggling, and this is actually not happening simultaneously, but the negotiation kind of all happened beforehand, and everybody decided they're not going to do much. So right now we've gone through McCready, Houston, and now we're up to Eon. And they're looking at Op 3, which I can buy at $10 each weapons. I hope that's a good deal. It's not a great deal, but you know. So now this is ship 2 here. So for $40 I can fill it with weapons. Now there's no easy way to mark this except to put the token onto the ship, and then to say, okay, I've got a full load. How do I mark that? Well, I put a 4 under there to indicate how much it is, I guess. And this is, you know, components from another game. You could write it down. That's probably what's expected. And, you know, they're not going to screw with B for that. See if anybody else has anything. Oh, another thing is B kind of agreed not to use their market, you know, their strength in the markets to try to destroy either of those corporations' positions. Really, nobody's terribly interested in wrecking positions. A and D have an agreement here. A doesn't wreck D's ship. D doesn't screw with A's market position there. So I think things are kind of settling down a little bit more once everybody started to realize, hey, we're all going to go broke, if we fight each other, which will put us probably to the investment phase. Pushing to turn 9, I start thinking about, gee, how well or poorly are people doing? So Gamma Leporis is down to $107. They started out at 250 with 2 ships, which is what they still have more or less. And the big difference for them, I guess, is they built a bunch of factories. They have some additional warehouse capacity, more factories. So they've invested that money. They haven't really lost any cash there. If I had more capital on hand, I'd try to get more shipping capacity. Right now I only have 14 and 4, but without the money, I can't do it. Houston Fearless started out with 500, and they're not far, 400. They've still got their 3 ships going. They've added some factory capacity. They're doing pretty well, actually. And although they don't have enough money, in my mind, to spring up to a better ship, they might want to get, a flute to smuggle into here, but they need the cash on hand. Even though they have some raw materials, they kind of need it to keep the juices running for a little while, because they're going to have to buy stuff. They've got some kind of low, cheaper commodities on board right now. They're looking at buying the monopoles or the spice or whatever. McCready started out at what, like 900? Yeah, and they're down to 580 and with no significant gain. I don't know what happened. Quasar. So Quasar started off with like $1,000, right? Yeah. They're down to 200. Now they've had to pay twice for a ship because of getting pirated, essentially. And they're really not doing terribly well at all. Their shipping, I think, is worse than it was originally. Yeah, they had a Piccolo to begin with. They got something a little bigger now. But they've definitely lost a lot of cash and are not doing well at all. Overhusen started out at whatever the starting is for these guys. I think it's 300. Yeah, 300 and a ship. Now they're up to 2 ships, including a specially designed one to slip in there. A couple $100. They're doing pretty well, actually. They only have to get to 1,000, and I think they're actually probably doing the best out of everyone. And then Eon started off with $200 to begin with. They've still got that, but not a lot else. They've got these weapons on board that they can sell, but that's really that's not a great opportunity for them. They have not gained much at all either. Now, of course, some of that money has gone into buying, political status, making sales that aren't necessarily optimal price positioning to try to get market position. But that doesn't stop happening, because when somebody is above you in the market, you may well spend your $20 to knock them down. All right, so that's kind of a feel for, where we are and how we're failing to really move forward. And that honestly is close to how I feel about this game across the board. Is as people get more used to it, it moves from, oh yeah, I can make money doing this, to, well, I can not lose money doing this, not lose money at all, maybe make a tiny amount hauling a whole bunch more stuff, and make money off my reputation, and maybe I'll be able to drive other people downwards so that they're losing money each turn because their bids aren't going through. And that's kind of the destructive capitalism of not quite business management, and it's closer to what you see in executive decision where people are frozen with something, but it's a little bit worse than that because there are some expenditures that you have to pay for maintaining, for maintaining your ships and such not. On the other hand, there's the possibility of extra income coming in from nowhere. So it floats closer to the executive decision model than to the business management, business strategy model. Where you're really maybe trying to drive the other people out of business more than you're trying to win the game. The reason for that is, and it's really simple, if you start using the price wars as a means to just losing money less quickly. Now, other people could withdraw completely from the market, more or less, try to figure out other ways to make money, say smuggling or something. But once they do that, you've kind of beaten them, and now you have the market and you can play it, the way you would anyway and probably make a lot of money off of it. The one problem with playing it the way you would anyway is if you've got one of these monster ships that can haul a bunch of stuff, they become less valuable. They're really useful towards trying not to lose too much money, but not quite as good at trying to make a lot of money because, if you're purchasing something and the base price is 1 at the time and you're paying 4 per unit, and then you're selling it and the base price is, 8 or 9, and you're selling it for 5 per unit, you're not going to even make money because you've got crew costs and everything that are just above that. However, it really does put a stranglehold on what other people can manage and becomes kind of powerful. And that's actually the one effective thing Quasar was doing, was dumping so much goods, but then they got slogged. It's not good. Okay, so bids are in, initiatives in. Looks like McCready didn't actually put a bid in on initiative. The reason is because he's going to toss that to get his ship outfitted a little better, and so that he can do jumps better. And he's got some alloys to sell. That's not the best place to sell alloys, but yeah, I don't think he's involved in trying to buy any isotopes. He doesn't see. There's too few places he could sell them. Mu Hercules is the only place where he could make any profit at all. And it just isn't worth it because he's got to make that choice between system space and planetary space. In fact, what he might want to do is, is if he intercepts a ship and gets paid a bribe, he might also sell some materials to that ship if they can, if they have room to hold it. That's kind of his thinking if he ends up ever capturing more crap. In general, though, people probably want to pay the bribe because, as we saw with the yellow ship there, not Qantas, Quasar, there's not a lot of chance in the space combat. Now, it's possible there's a big ship that's got a lot of light weapon pods that could reduce the desirability of tackling it because it could do some damage. It's got missiles and such not. But probably every battle is going to come to a negotiated payoff from now on, I would think. We have an attempt to slip those weapons into Gamma-Leporis. He actually has a warehouse, so he's going to try to buy up some alloys as well. The event for this turn is kind of interesting, well, for 3 turns from now. A bunch of people were able to buy it. It's business 8. I charged McCready. He didn't. I thought it was business 5 at one point. But yeah, the other people got it. Gamalop did not pay for it. They had a 5, but for some reason I changed my mind as to what the number was as I went through. That is an event on Spice a technical breakthrough. It's going to add 2 to the SD modifiers for spice from all transaction phases from that point onward in the game. That doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of effect. What it does is it changes. Let me try to think how to put this. It will tend to depress spice prices everywhere and make it a less attractive market. But it's also depressing them where they're for sale. So at some point or another, we're going to come to, so these are going to depress on their own as well. This is going to end up being kind of standing steady, which really means that spice starts to become less of a viable long-term market. But I don't know if the game is going to last long enough for that to be an issue. Really, the game lasts until, I think, the inflation event comes up, simply because it's too hard to hit the victory conditions. We'll see. Maybe Orange can do it because his conditions are only 1,000, and other people have that too. Gamma-Leporis with their special alloys cost 1, because the alloys here in the 1 protected system, they have a tendency to drop down in price. If I can get people are going to be shipping alloys to Mu Hercules like mad now. That's kind of the real thing, is that if I could get to the $1,000, but I'm quite a ways away from it and not able to make a lot of money if the alloys markets are getting swamped by everyone. And of course, if they're not making a lot of money, people may stop buying alloys in the same quantities. That'll probably still keep the prices fairly low, though, because some people will be moving them to the best locations they can, I guess. The thing that's going away, though, is, Tauceti is not a good final market for the alloys, but it's got the cheap isotopes. So there's kind of if Sigma Drac, if that kind of opens up a little bit more than it has with Macready leaving, and there's some possibility that the alloys might start getting dumped there in exchange for isotopes, because it's a better deal than Tauceti, and it also has the spice there. But people who have not seen the spice ticket, that's fine. People who've seen it might be thinking, gee, this is not necessarily the time to have spice on board, although they could maybe sell some early, but there's not good margins on spice. We see a $3 difference between the minimum and maximum price, and that just means that people have no real desire to be buying up spice. And we have the same kind of situation, only a $2 margin on the best prices from monopoles, which basically means it's not worth shipping. It's not worth dealing with. People are still trying to buy them, but because Mu Hercules is a good market for the alloys, if we can get, a couple more bucks on the monopoles, maybe we'll be able to sell them at some point. Opportunities phase after bribes have been paid. We have these weapons to get rid of. We got 4 weapons here in Gamma-Leporis. We get to make a quick roll to see what they're going to bring us. We could lose money off them. And we break even. And as you can see, smuggling's not a terribly valuable thing, especially depends on the material. The Tempest can bring in a lot of cash, but you don't know how much the price is on it. So like 12 is the price there. You don't lose anything. Here there was a possibility of actually losing money. I'll put a guess over to the investment phase. I'm just not seeing a lot that people want to do. Is anybody sitting on a pile of money? Yellow has a fair amount of money. Do they want to get another big ship running? It's hard to justify just because there aren't that many opportunities open to make a lot of cash anymore. but the alloys run is still pretty good. And unfortunately for them, Gameloopco does not have a lot of cash. They spend so much on their factories that they don't really have the capacity to move a lot of goods. So I think Yellow may actually build itself another big ship. Maybe not as big as their last one, but they're the only ones sitting on a lot of cash. Well, no, wait a minute. Green has some cash too. The problem with Green is they have got 3 ships in operation. And they kind of need them. They're moving a lot of goods here. Here, this is a high port level. I don't want to sell there. So I don't really have an opportunity to get another ship in line. I think 3 ships is probably the limit that I can handle here. If there were less players, that would be different. So, you know, we might see some investments in whatever the hell that's called, connections, or in trying to drive these so that they start making some cash off their reputation. But I don't see a whole hell of a lot going on here in terms of investments of either ships, plants, warehouses. Warehouses are worth doing. I'll just look at situations. There may be somebody who's sitting on, you know, some material. This is what happened over here. Is, hey, I got crap I want to sell there, and I don't want to leave my ship there. So that just kind of happens incidentally, but we're probably pretty close to done here for the turn.